Julio Leal has been the head of localization at the Ciena Corporation since 2010. Before joining Sienna, he worked at SAP as EMEA localization manager, fluent in Spanish, English, and German. Julio holds an MA in Translation and Interpreting Studies from the University of Granada in Spain. He also holds executive certificates in Web Globalization Management and Global Marketing. Hola, Julio, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, buenos días.
Sorry, my Spanish is finished on this.
It's good.
Yeah, I had a couple of Spanish-speaking classmates when I was studying in China. So how are you doing?
Well, considering the circumstances, I'm not doing bad. So how are yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm good. Yeah. So all of us are almost in the same circumstances now. So
yeah.
Okay. So guys, just reminding you that you have this Q&A tab to answer your questions while Julio will be presenting. And feel free to share your opinion and feedback in chat. We're checking this. Thank you very much for staying with us. Julio, now I'm giving the virtual mic to you. So
Thank you.
Can share the screen.
Okay, thank you. Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Fine?
Yes. Let me share screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, and thank you everyone for joining in this session today. Thank you, Smartcat, for organizing such a wonderful event today. I think you just said we have 1,000 attendees worldwide, so that's huge. So thanks again for organizing this. I know we are all living special days, so I wanted to create a presentation to send some positive vibes to the audience. We don't really know when this is going to end, but at least there is some positive news out there that we can use for create some positivism. I am based in southern Spain. We are actually about to enter our 7th week of confinement until now, so it's tough. I know some countries are also in the same situation, so let's try to make the best of it and stay positive. So the agenda for my presentation is very, very easy. I'm going to talk about some facts and preliminary ideas about the whole pandemic situation and how I see it. Then I want to go into the industries winning and losing in the current situation, and I'm going to be focusing on industries in which the localization industry might be more engaged. Then I'll be talking about the situation within Siena, how we are managing the whole operational model, how I see the localization industry and things that they could do for weathering the storm, and then some final slides to positive vibes and see if we can create some silver lining across the whole situation. So I'm fully aware that Siena is not a well-known company probably across the audience. We are a networking systems, services, and software company. We have 1,500 customers across the globe. We have around 7,000 employees in more than 35 countries. When people ask me what we do as a company, the way I usually put it to make it very simple is, when you connect to 4G or 5G networks using your smartphone, you are obviously using your operator's network, but the company providing the network, the equipment, and the infrastructure to make that happen is probably Siena. So obviously, we are a B2B business. We serve large corporations. I want to make this clear because obviously our localization strategy and our marketing strategy are based on this fact that we are a B2B business serving large enterprises. So needless to say, we are in the middle of a huge crisis across all continents, across all industries. But I think that, as in all previous crises, we could use this opportunity to, use this crisis to take a step back and maybe rethink the way that we do things in order to improve where we should be improving, in order to make things different, and make a fresh new start for many of the things we do in our day to day. So, needless to say, the growth forecast for all economies is downgrading. Some economies will suffer most than others. If you can see here, China will only see 1% reduction in growth this year. The US will also, see a small impact according to the forecast. But other economies like, Italy, Spain, or even Japan will suffer the most. Just recently, the International Monetary Fund predicted that the Italian and Spanish economies will contract by 8 to 9%. So that's huge, obviously, for a national economy. And the same applies to the stock market. Since the outbreak, we saw huge declines in the prices across all industries. No one seems to know when this is going to end. This crisis in the markets also comes with a crisis in the oil market, with prices just hitting lows that we've never seen before. So, it's a crisis of many crises, and no one really is able to predict when this is going to end. So actually, we've seen a lot of, economists in the media initially saying that the economy will recover in V-shape, meaning that, we will fall sharply, but the recover will also be extremely quick. Obviously, this is not be the case, and everyone seems to agree that that was very optimistic. Then we move into an U-shaped recovery, meaning, we would have some time for recovery, and then everything would be back to normal kind of quickly. Now everyone seems to agree that that's not the option anymore. The most pessimistic said that there would be no recovery at all. It would be just an L shape. Hopefully, they are totally wrong. And now more and more people seem to agree with the idea of, the Nike shape recovery, meaning, it's a huge decline, but things will get back to normal. And the dates that, the governments and the companies are managing is the end of 2021, next year. Maybe that's very optimistic considering the circumstances, but we all know that this is temporary. And as soon as we have a vaccine in place, things will, change rapidly. Again, as in all crises, not all industries and sectors are affected alike. Those industries and sectors involving physical contact or travel do have a high exposure to the whole situation, and their businesses will suffer. Other sectors like the metals or technology hardware, they have a moderate exposure. And for these industries, probably when factories can get back to normal and the supply chains are normalized, they will see their business going back to normal. We also have sectors with low exposure or positive exposure, actually, like pharmaceuticals or telecommunication companies, which they are seeing an increase in their business, actually, or the retailers. I'll discuss that a little bit later, but obviously, given that we are all confined indoors and given that we only have the opportunity to spend our money in-house, that means that, retailers with a solid presence on the web will make huge profits out of this situation. We are all confined indoors. So obviously one of our main activities is consuming media. However, the way that we consume media is different across different generations. That's I'm going to give you 4 examples here for Generation Z, which are those aged between 16 and 23 years old, approximately. Obviously, they are more interested in, online video gaming. That's where they spend most of the time when they have media. In contrast, Generation X, under which I am myself, 38 to 56 years old, we seem to have a more balanced way of consuming media. Obviously, broadcast TV and online TV streaming are still huge, but we seem to be more across different channels. Millennials, when analyzing the data, to me, it was clear that probably this generation, with ages between 24 and 37, they have the most balanced way of consuming media. And actually, it was funny to see that this is the only generation with a significant usage of podcasts. Other generations do not use podcasts at all, or they just have very low percentage of usage. And baby boomers, those aged between 57 and 64 years old, they are just doing, things as they used to be in the past, just regular TV, typical TV, and that's the way they consume media. Why is this information important? Because you as a marketer or as a localization professional, now that you know that all your audience is indoors, you need to know which channels to use to target your audience. So obviously, depending on the age or generation your target audience belongs to, you will have to use one channel or others. So, I mean, this tool and this information for marketers is extremely relevant and important. We are confined. We still can spend our money on some things, but here we can see how people are spending their money these days. So obviously, all activities related to travel, like airlines, going to the movies, or buying fitness apparel, that's gone. People are just spending their money on food, supermarkets. They go to the grocery store. They do a lot of video streaming. They play online with friends and family, etc. So obviously, we have two different spectrums of how people are spending their money. In this graphic, you can see which items or which elements are on the rise in the e-commerce sector, and which products are in decline. So huge increase of globes, or all items related to food. Again, the toilet paper seems to be on the rise again, almost 200% of toilet paper sales. And in contrast, and unfortunately, all items related to travel, like luggage or briefcases or, sport apparel, on decline for obvious reasons. And the truth is that we are in a shifting environment. Who would have said now that, people demonizing the plastic sector 2-3 months ago because they were destroying the planet, everyone was against them, and now 2-3 months later they are now kind of the saviors of the world, because given that many health products and equipment is made out of plastic. So this is all changing very rapidly, and industries like that were very healthy months ago are now on the opposite side of the spectrum. And this can happen on any sector. Just let's look, for instance, at the commercial real estate. WeWork, actually solid company. I think they were about to go public last year. They are commercial real estate. They rent office space to companies. But now that, given that companies are moving all their employees to work from home, we've seen a kind of change of paradigms, and looks like the way that we interact with employees now is no longer in the office, it's using online conferencing tools. And as a result of that, we all know the increase that we've seen in the stock price for companies like Zoom. As you can see here in the chart, price almost doubled since the outbreak. So this brings up another question: is this the end of office work as we know it? I'm aware that many companies were very reluctant to let their employees work from home. However, now more and more companies are seeing that maybe it was not such a bad an idea, and maybe after all these security measures are lifted, maybe more companies will embrace home office, which will reduce the demand for office space. And who knows, maybe that's a sector totally in decline, or maybe we will use office differently. So there are so many open questions out there based on the way that we are interacting now. Uh, as in all crises, we have big losers and big winners. As I said earlier in my presentation, I want to focus in on certain industries and industries in which the localization industry is more engaged or might be more exposed. And I think that the first sector that comes to mind is the travel industry. Unfortunately, this industry has been hit really hard. We have more than 100 countries around the world with travel restrictions to their nationals. You cannot go in or out of the country. And no one really knows when this is going to end. We see governments postponing the quarantine status, over and over again. And no one really knows when, we will be able to resume travel. As a consequence of that, the number of daily flights has, dramatically dropped, almost, half of it, or, in a huge percentage. And airlines are in serious trouble. We all know that most airplanes are parked in airports. No one really knows when, they will be able to resume flights. Just yesterday or the day before yesterday on the media, they were discussing if we resume travel, will that be with security measures, meaning that we will need to sell, or we will need to reduce the capacity of the airplanes by 60%. Obviously, that would imply that, if the airlines need to reduce seats by 60%, maybe the ticket prices will, go up 60%, because obviously that's not sustainable from an economic point of view. So a lot of question marks in the travel industry. And not only airlines, many companies associated with the industry, like Booking.com or TripAdvisors, are also seeing declines in the users, in the users they have on the web or on their apps. In both cases, you can see 40%, almost 50%. And obviously, we don't know when people will be able to travel again. And there are so many uncertainties out there that obviously no one is really making plans for the near future. Another industry in big crisis, we read it in the news every day, is the automotive industry. Factories are stopped. The supply chain is suffering a lot of challenges. I think that this week, some German factories have reopened their supply chain. Not all of them, because they don't have still old materials. And even if they are able to resume production in their factories, no one really knows what the demand for those cars will be. We are entering a full recession globally, so obviously buying a new car is not something that will be on top of the consumers when this is all over. They will have more other priorities. That will mean maybe more layoffs for the automotive industry. No one really knows. Some recent research for the automotive sector, even in the best case scenario, meaning that we will have a fast recovery, economies like China will suffer dramatically from this supply chain shortage for materials in the cars. But in order to have winners, in order to have losers, we have to have winners. So we already discussed the rise of Zoom as a preferred application for conferencing with colleagues or with family or with friends. Most of us who work from home and also have kids, they also know, Google Classroom, it's a way to teach kids remotely. All these apps, meaning online streaming, are on the rise, because that's the way that people have to interact with peers. I was discussing earlier the rise of the e-commerce in general across all regions. And here I just want to put a very quick example of Italy, which is probably the so far, unfortunately, the country that has been hit the hardest by the pandemic. This shows the e-commerce sales in Italy from the outbreak till very recent days. And actually, I think that Italy went into lockdown on the 21st of March. And you can see that very same day, the sales of the sales in the e-commerce sector almost double. Obviously, they have some ups and downs, but there is an upward trend in the e-commerce. This means that solid businesses with a solid localization strategy, with solid websites, might be in a better position to weather the storm and be able to capture many of these sales in the e-commerce sector. I think that the localization industry, it's in a good situation to serve the winners of the situation. We know that Netflix and HBO, they are adding new users every month. I think Netflix announced in a recent press release that they have added 16 million new users worldwide. That's huge. HBO the same. They are adding new content, new series, new films that obviously they need to be translated. As a result of that, we also are aware of the fact that, due to the huge demand in traffic, Netflix was pressed to reduce the quality of their streaming services by 25% in order not to collapse the internet in Europe. And also in Spain, I know some countries have a dubbing culture for films and series. Because of the situation, of the lockdown situation in Spain, many series and films were only offered in a subtitled version, given that the dubbing studios were totally locked down and the dubbing professionals could not do their duties. So we see, a little bit of both situation here. In one of my previous slides, we saw the influence on how the younger generations are using online gaming. Big platforms like Twitch for online gaming, they are seeing weekly increases of 17% in web traffic. The same for one of their main competitors, Mixer, weekly increases of 90%. So we all are fully aware that the gaming industry is huge for localization. So we are seeing a huge increase in these industries, and obviously this could mean a huge increase for those localization companies serving this industry. Now I want to quickly talk about how we at Ciena were able to cope with the whole situation since the confinement. Luckily enough, at Sienna, a huge percentage of employees work from home. And the whole setup that we have, it's fully remote. So in my team, for instance, we have been working remotely since day one. So obviously, we have not seen any disruption of service, or we have not seen any changes in the way we operate since the outbreak. And the localization strategy is based on two main pillars. We have a very good, solid set of tools. And by tools, I mean a content management system serving the entire organization. The localization team is involved in the whole process. So we know all the content that it's being produced, that it's coming from the different teams. We are kept in the loop. So we know what content is going to be landing in our supply, in our operations well in advance, so we can prepare. We also have a translation management system fully connected to the CMS. So once things are fully developed and all the content is ready to be used, we know what languages we need to use, we need to translate into, and that goes into the translation management system, and then my team takes it from there. We also use analytics tools. Obviously, you can have very good tools out there, but if you don't know the results of your strategy, you don't really know if you are doing well or not. So we use these analytic tools to change things, to maybe make some tweaks to our strategy along the way. Maybe we can add content, we remove content, we add more languages, we reduce languages, depending on what the data are telling us. But obviously, behind good tools, we need to have a good set of people, right? So without them, there's no way that the good tools can work. So at Ciena, we have a dedicated team of resources fully dedicated to localization. We work with SLVs and MLVs. depending on the language, the type of content, etc. We do not stick to one single thing just because we've seen that some circumstances might be better for one approach and one for others. We work with professional agencies to help us with, I don't know, multimedia content, e-learning, desktop publishing, so a full array of services out there. And to me, what it is probably the most important pillar here is the freelancers. We've been using freelancers since day one. I'm a full supporter of the freelancers. I think they do a great job, especially at Ciena. They are responsible for the quality of all our translations. They are considered part of the company. And I think that having a good set of freelancers helps everything else work, because you can have very good content management system, you can have very good agencies, but if you don't have good linguists behind all that, nothing really works. So I think that's critical. And now my final slides are about to send some positive vibes out there. Call it coincidence or not, but we all know that some governments manage the situation better than others. And as I said, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's not, but the governments which have been proven to manage the whole situation way better are headed by women. So hoping this is a change in paradigm and we can see more women in the top positions of government, maybe for the next pandemic, especially for New Zealand and Taiwan. I think those were clear examples of that situation. Another silver line, more positive news. Maybe this is the new start for a greener world. The European Green Deal was signed last year with very, optimistic ideas of how we should transition to the greener economy. But given that we are now in the middle of this pandemic, politicians from all different parties, intellectuals, they are pushing the European institutions to use, this Green Deal as the most significant way of, exiting the situation we have right now. So maybe we are expecting to see a lot of money being invested in green energies, green mobility. Who knows? Maybe this is a sector for the future. I'm hoping it is actually. We've all seen the news. We've all seen the images. The significant reduction of pollution levels across major cities in the world. I think the city of Milan is one of the most shocking examples. And I think that yesterday or the day before yesterday, the city of Milan announced that once this is all over, they're going to be announcing greener policies for mobility. They are not expecting the cities to be so crowded. We have all seen the news of Venice. The water is totally clean. So that's why I'm staying positive. We are seeing the result of not the pollution that we are creating to the world, and maybe we are start using things differently. So don't lose hope, as this lady here. I think that it's important that we keep spirits up and that we stay positive for the future. Thank you so much.
Very good timing, Julio. Thank you very much. And kudos from a female attendees of ours. It was such an unexpected piece of information. Thank you for bringing this in. I haven't, looked at this from this angle. But yeah, I heard from some people that patriarchy world will be replaced by matriarchy world soon. So maybe it's one of the signs. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Let's stay. I mean, I'm not gonna say that it should be just all women, but I think we should be supporting that idea, and they have proven to be way better than women, at least in this situation.
Or at least we have something to learn, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have questions from our attendees. Let's start with these, and yeah, we have even question from our YouTube visitors. So. Julio, do you think AI technology will end the translation industry? If yes, when? what are your recommendations to translators, editors, or LSP managers working in the industry?
Well, that's a very good idea. I mean, I don't think we will ever replace human translators. Um, and there will always be work for human translators. It's true that artificial intelligence is huge. They are becoming smarter and smarter every day. Obviously, I don't have a date when there could be a major outbreak of artificial intelligence, but we are seeing that. Um, I'm a total supporter of machine translation, for instance, just because we have so much content out there that we need just rapidly translated, that we need these kind of technologies to deal with a huge amount of content that we have. But from my perspective, at least, 80% of my work is marketing. And honestly, there's no way that I can give marketing content to a machine, and not, at least not right now, because things wouldn't work the same. I understand that content like documentation or help can benefit from this kind of technology, but I don't think that all different types of content are a good fit for this type of technology. So that's my view, at least, on this.
Yeah, so all of us are now producing content, and the volumes are growing and growing. So we will definitely need more people to be involved into translation. Even some people now, I know that in touristic industry, they are now translating posts in Instagram, in Facebook, and also in Twitter. So have people to translate tweets. Imagine how machine will translate tweets of Trump.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true. So yeah, I think there will be enough space for everyone, for technologies and humans. And as I said, I'm a big supporter of freelance human translators, and I will keep it that way, at least for now.
Cool. So let's take a look at the second question. What are the main things to consider when looking for freelance translators?
Well, that's a good question. Um, this is a conversation that I had with many colleagues and friends in the industry. Um, One of the things that I look into when I'm looking for freelancers is if they are specialized or not. Um, in my opinion, I don't think that it helps that you serve yourself as a translator in a good array of topics. Okay, you cannot be good at one and extremely good at others. I think that you need to specialize on certain fields in order to be good as a translator in that field. On the other hand, I understand that many translators tell me that, hey, if I just specialize in this field, I might be losing jobs, or it will be very hard for me to ramp up and get customers. Yeah, that's true. That's the other side of the equation. But I think that once you specialize in one field, I think that you will have, a solid portfolio of customers serving for that industry. All my freelancers have been working in the team for almost 10 years. Um, and believe it or not, this is what I call, honestly, this the lawyer what the fuck, because when you actually go to a lawyer, you don't go to enter the firm and say, hey, lawyer, what's your best rate for serving my case? No, you are actually asked for the rate. To me, it's the same. I think we should just treat translators as other professionals in other industries and say, hey, what's your rate? Respect those rates. And honestly, a well-paid translator will always be fully engaged with your company. So I think that's the best way to hire translators. Obviously, we see huge demand for reducing prices, etc. But I think that for me as a marketer and a localizer, having good translators is way more important than reducing costs at this point, because translating cheap for marketing and not selling but saving money just for the sake of it doesn't make any sense. So I think that for translators, specializing in very specific fields might benefit more than just having a full array of fields for translation.
Thank you for such a detailed answer. And we have another one. What analytics tools do you use and what for?
Um, for marketing, we use well-known tools in the industry in order to analyze the visitors we have, where they go when they go to our websites, if our emails are open or not, if they click on the CTAs that we have on our emails. So we also do A/B testing, meaning that we can send the same email with two different offers just to see which offer is working better than other. So obviously, translating and not analyzing the data of those translations will not make you better. Okay, so I think that every time that you get budget for translation, you are supposed to make very good use of that translation budget. And I think that, by analyzing the data, it makes you it makes you better in terms of how you use your budget for translation. So I think that those tools are well known for everyone, but I think that everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Great. So we have more questions. Guys, we still have time, so you can write your questions here. How do you manage project communication with multiple freelancers, especially in multilingual projects?
Through the translation management system. So once the content, it can be, I don't know, marketing, could be multimedia, it can be a video. Once that content is completed in English, that moves into our translation management system, and from that point onwards, it's distributed across the different actors in the workflow. So we have translators, we have translation agencies, we have vendors doing different stuff, and everything is centralized through the translation management system. And all the communications are within the system. In 10 years, I think we've had 2 translation management systems, just because obviously not all TMS might be a good fit for you. So obviously, it's also very important that you make sure that the capacities and the requirements in your localization team can be adapted in that TMS. And I don't think there is a one size fits all for TMS. So it's very important that you scrutinize very well what kind of TMS are you ready to onboard.
Okay. We have, everybody is saying thank you. Very well structured and insightful presentation. Julio, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And a couple of more questions. Do you reckon the language industry would be a worth industry to invest in the next 5 years, and why?
Can you say that again?
Do you reckon the language industry would be a worth industry to invest in the next 5 years, and why?
Yes, I totally support that idea. There will always be content, either from one industry or another. There will always be content, and some industries might die, or some industry might suffer from the whole situation. But we are seeing other industries just rise in because of the situation. I think there is always opportunity, and if the localization industry is able to quickly identify those industries, there is always room for investment in the localization industry. So I think that, fortunately for us, the localization industry is a good position. Obviously now no one really knows. We've received many surveys lately from research firms just to see how we are planning to use our budget along the year now with all these uncertainties. And honestly, we don't really know how we're going to manage the situation until we have a clear idea of when the confinement will end, when we'll be able to travel. But I think that given that we know that once we have a vaccine in place, this will pretty much over. I think this gives us a temporary horizon on the planning for our budget. So totally yes, I think it's worth investing now and in 5 years' time.
Cool. So once again, thank you very much. It was an amazing presentation made by Julio Leal. And thank you for the detailed answers. I hope that our attendees are more than satisfied. We wish you success, and keep in touch, and stay tuned with our conference. We have more speakers to come.
Okay, thank you for hosting me.
You're welcome.